These stories were shared by real people online, and every detail comes from experiences they say still haunt them to this day. When we brought Max home, he was already 3 years old, an older dog by shelter standards, calm, observant, and unusually gentle. The volunteer told us he'd been passed over for months because he wasn't playful enough. That was fine with us. We didn't want chaos. We wanted quiet companionship. Max fit into our lives almost immediately. He learned our routines without training, slept at the foot of the bed without being told, and followed my wife through the house like a silent shadow. He never barked unless someone knocked, and even then, it was a low, warning sound, measured, controlled, the kind of bark that made you listen. For the first few weeks, nothing felt wrong. Our house was old but well maintained. 3 bedrooms, a finished basement, and one small spare room at the end of the hall. The room had no real purpose. No furniture, no windows, just a light bulb and a door we kept shut because there was no reason to open it. The previous owners had used it for storage, but we never did. The first time Max showed interest in that room, I barely noticed. He stopped in the hallway during a nighttime walk to the kitchen, just stood there, staring at the door. His views were forward, tail stiff, posture alert but not aggressive. I snapped my fingers lightly, called his name. He looked at me, then back at the door, as if weighing a decision. "Come on," I said. After a moment, he followed me. That should have been the end of it. But the next night, he did it again. Same spot, same posture. This time, he sat down directly in front of the door. I laughed it off and told my wife that Max must have decided it was his hallway now. She smiled, scratched behind his ears, and he relaxed. At first, it was almost funny. Within a week, Max refused to sleep in our bedroom anymore. Instead, every night around midnight, he'd get up, walk down the hall, and lie down directly in front of the spare room door. If we tried to call him back, he wouldn't move. He wasn't disobedient, he just didn't respond. It was like the rest of the house stopped existing once he was there. Then he started growling. Low, quiet, constant. Not at us, not at the hallway, at the door. I checked the room myself, turned on the light, empty. No smell, no drafts, no animals in the walls. I even left the door open for a few hours to prove a point. Max stood at the threshold but wouldn't enter. When I closed it again, he lay down and relaxed slightly, as if something had been corrected. That's when my wife said something that still makes my stomach tighten. "He's not trying to get in," she whispered. "He's trying to keep something in." I told her not to talk like that, but the nights got worse. Max stopped eating normally. He lost interest in toys. During the day, he was subdued, always watching the hallway, his ears twitching at sounds we couldn't hear. At night, his growling changed. It wasn't steady anymore. It came in short bursts, like warnings. One night, I woke up to the sound of his claws scraping against the floor. He wasn't scratching. He was bracing. His body was pressed sideways against the door, legs spread, muscles shaking. The growl coming from his chest wasn't a sound I'd ever heard from an animal before. It wasn't fear. It was strain, as if he was pushing back against something heavy. I reached for him instinctively, and the moment my hand touched his fur, he snapped at the air, missing my fingers by inches. He had never shown aggression before, never. He immediately looked back at me, eyes wide, almost apologetic, but didn't move from his position. That's when I noticed the door handle. It was turning. Not fully, just enough to make the faintest clicking sound over and over, like someone testing it carefully. I stood there frozen, watching it move. When it finally stopped, Max collapsed onto the floor, panting heavily. His growl faded into a weak whine. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, we called a contractor to inspect the room. We told him we thought there might be structural issues, pipes, vents, something causing noise. He checked everything: walls, ceiling, floor. Nothing. Before leaving, he paused and asked, "You know this room wasn't always sealed off, right?" We didn't. He explained that decades ago the room had been connected to the basement by a narrow staircase that had been removed and covered. The space had been closed up after an incident involving a previous tenant. "What kind of incident?" my wife asked. The contractor hesitated, then shrugged. "Police thing. Family didn't want to talk about it." That night, Max wouldn't move from the door at all. Not to drink, not to eat, not even when we offered his favorite treats. Around 3 a.m., the growling started again, but this time it wasn't directed at the door. It was directed at the hallway behind him, at us. Slowly, he turned his head, eyes locked on mine, and for the first time since we adopted him, Max looked afraid of me. Then he stood up, placed himself between us and the door, and growled louder than ever before. That's when I understood. He wasn't guarding the room. He was guarding us, from whatever knew we were there now. We moved out 2 weeks later. On our last night, Max refused to enter the house after sunset. He laid down in the yard and wouldn't budge. I didn't force him. We slept in the car instead. The new owners renovated the spare room. They found scratch marks on the inside of the doorframe, from the other side. Max never growled again after they left that house. But sometimes, late at night, he wakes up and stares down hallways that aren't there anymore. Ears forward, body tense, like he's listening for a door that no longer exists. I adopted Luna when she was barely 6 weeks old. She fit in the palm of my hand, all bones and soft gray fur, with one white patch on her chest shaped like a crooked star. From the first night, she slept under my chin, purring so loudly it vibrated through my teeth. The vet told me she was healthy, normal, just small. She grew into a quiet cat, not shy, but selective. She followed me from room to room, always sitting just out of reach, watching. At night, she slept curled against my back. If I rolled over, she adjusted with me, like she needed to stay aligned. That's why the night she didn't come home felt wrong in a way I can't explain. Luna was an indoor-outdoor cat. She never stayed out past sunset. Never. I'd hear her paws on the porch around dusk, the familiar short meow at the door. That night, it didn't come. I stayed up until 2 in the morning, calling her name from the porch, shaking her food bowl. Nothing. By morning, panic had set in. I printed flyers, posted online, walked the neighborhood until my throat hurt from calling her name. Days passed, then weeks. People told me cats wander, that she'd return when she was ready. I wanted to believe that, but deep down I knew Luna wouldn't leave me without a reason. After a month, I stopped setting out food at night. I had to accept she was gone. 2 months later, I heard the porch. That same soft scratch, that same short meow. I opened the door, and there she was, Luna. Clean, well-fed, sitting calmly like she'd never left. The white star on her chest exactly the same. I dropped to my knees and sobbed into her fur. She didn't resist. She didn't purr either. I told myself she was in shock. Trauma does that. But the first thing I noticed was the smell. Luna used to smell like dust and sunlight. Now there was something else underneath. Damp, metallic, like cold soil after rain. I bathed her the next morning. The smell didn't go away. Then there were the small things. She didn't sleep with me anymore. She slept sitting upright in the corner of the bedroom, facing the door. She stopped responding to her name, not ignoring it, just not recognizing it. When I called Luna, her ears didn't twitch. She used the litter box perfectly, but always stared at the wall while doing it. Always the same wall. I took her to the vet, same clinic, same doctor. "Looks healthy," he said. "Gained a little weight, actually. Probably found another family."
I asked him to scan for a microchip. The scanner beeped, registered. Same number, same owner, me. I laughed out of relief that night and told myself I was imagining things. Then I noticed her eyes. They were the same color, but the way she used them was different. Luna used to blink slowly when I looked at her, a sign of trust. This cat didn't blink at all. She watched until I looked away.
Sometimes I'd wake up at night and find her sitting on my chest, nose inches from my face. Not heavy enough to hurt, just enough to be there. When I stirred, she'd hop down silently and sit by the door. The worst change was her voice. One night, she meowed. It was Luna's sound, but wrong. Too low, too stretched like it had been pulled through something narrow. After that, she only vocalized when she thought I wasn't listening. I started recording. At night, from the hallway, I'd hear soft noises. Not meows, more like attempts, like something practicing. One recording caught it clearly, a broken rhythm that almost sounded like my name. I stopped playing the recordings. The scratches came next. Not on furniture, on the inside of doors. Long vertical marks, higher than a cat should be able to reach. Every morning, more appeared. The bathroom door, the closet, my bedroom. One night, I woke to the sound of the litter box being dragged across the floor. I found Luna sitting beside it, staring at me. The box was empty, completely clean, no litter, no smell, as if it had never been used. That same night, I dreamed of my house being larger inside than outside. Hallways looping back on themselves, doors leading to rooms I didn't own. Luna walked ahead of me, tail upright, guiding me somewhere I didn't want to go. When I woke up, she was sitting on my chest again. Her mouth was open. No sound came out. I started researching missing pet stories. That's when I found others. Posts buried deep in forums. People describing pets that returned changed, pets that stared too long, that learned routines too quickly, pets that seemed more interested in watching than living. One comment stood out. They come back knowing things they shouldn't, and they hate mirrors. That night, I tested it. I carried Luna into the bathroom and set her down in front of the mirror. She froze. Her pupils widened until her eyes were nearly black. She didn't hiss, didn't move. Then she lifted a paw and touched the glass. Her reflection did not move with her. It lagged, just a second too slow. Luna screamed. I dropped her and stumbled back. The reflection snapped into sync instantly. Luna bolted from the room, slamming into the hallway wall hard enough to leave a mark. She didn't come out for hours. After that, she avoided reflective surfaces, windows, screens, polished metal. If she accidentally caught her reflection, she'd freeze until I covered it. The final night came quietly. I woke to the sound of my front door unlocking. I don't remember getting out of bed. I found myself standing in the hallway watching Luna sit by the door. She looked back at me and blinked slowly for the first time since she returned. Then she did something Luna used to do as a kitten. She tilted her head and chirped. My heart broke open. I stepped forward. The door opened by itself. Cold air rushed in, carrying that damp metallic smell. Luna walked out without looking back. In the morning, she was gone. No scratch marks, no litter box, no fur. Only one thing remained. On my phone, a recording from the night before. My voice, calling her name from inside the house. We adopted Oliver on a Sunday afternoon because he wouldn't stop watching us. The shelter volunteers said he was a mixed breed, maybe 4 years old, brought in after being found wandering near a condemned neighborhood slated for demolition. He didn't bark, didn't whine. He just sat in the corner of the kennel and followed us with his eyes as we moved. When my daughter knelt down, He stood and pressed his forehead gently against the bars, as if greeting someone he already knew. "He's very quiet," the volunteer said, "almost too well behaved." We took that as a good sign. Oliver settled into our home quickly, too quickly. By the first night, he knew where the water bowl was without being shown. He avoided the stairs that creaked and stepped only on the solid boards, even though we hadn't noticed which ones made noise yet. He slept on the landing outside our daughter's room, facing outward, like a sentry. At first, we thought it was protective instinct. Our house was old, built sometime in the 1950s. 2 floors, narrow hallways, lots of odd angles. The previous owners had passed away within a year of each other, and the place had sat empty for a long time before we bought it. We had repainted, replaced the carpets, modernized what we could. Oliver never entered the basement. Not once. The door could be open, lights on, stairs visible. He would stop several feet away and refuse to go further. If we tried to coax him, he'd lie down and turn his head away, not scared, resolute. Then there were the rooms he avoided upstairs. The guest bedroom, the upstairs bathroom after dark, the hall closet. Not randomly, consistently. He also reacted to sounds we didn't hear. Late at night, he'd lift his head and stare at the ceiling, tracking something moving slowly from one end of the house to the other. Sometimes his tail would thump softly when it reached a certain spot, like it was acknowledging a presence. The first time he growled was at my brother. My brother had come over for dinner. As soon as he stepped inside, Oliver positioned himself between my daughter and him. No barking, no snapping, just a low, steady growl that didn't waver. We laughed it off. My brother joked that dogs could sense bad vibes. But Oliver didn't stop until my brother left. After that, Oliver began doing something that unsettled me deeply. He would guide us. If my daughter dropped a toy, Oliver would retrieve it and place it in a very specific spot in her room. If something fell behind furniture, he'd lead us directly to it. Once, when I couldn't find my car keys, Oliver walked to the hall closet, sat down, and stared at the floor. I moved a shoe. The keys were underneath. I hadn't been near the closet that day. At night, he paced the hallways at exact times: 1:17 a.m., 2:42 a.m., 4:03 a.m. Always the same sequence, always stopping at the same doorways. Sometimes he'd sit and wait, ears perked as if listening to a cue. My wife started keeping a notebook. She wrote down his behaviors, patterns, times, reactions. One night, she whispered something I didn't want to hear. "It feels like he's following rules." The smell came next. Not constant, just brief waves. Damp wood, rust, old water. It always came from the same place, the basement door. I decided to investigate. I went down alone during the day, flashlight in hand. The basement was unfinished but clean. Concrete floor, exposed beams, old shelving, nothing unusual except one corner. The concrete there was darker, uneven, like it had been patched. When I returned upstairs, Oliver was sitting at the top of the stairs, body rigid, eyes locked on me. He didn't relax until I closed the basement door. That night, Oliver didn't sleep. He paced faster than usual. His stops lasted longer. At 4:03 a.m., he sat outside the guest bedroom and whimpered quietly, like he was apologizing. The next morning, our neighbor stopped us while we were taking Oliver for a walk. "You know," she said hesitantly, "I thought they tore this place down." "What do you mean?" my wife asked. "The house. Years ago, after what happened." She told us about the family who lived there before the last owners, a couple with a young child. There had been reports, complaints, police visits. Then one night, an accident, a fire that never fully burned. The child didn't make it. They sealed off the basement after, she said it was safer. That night, Oliver refused to come inside. He sat in the yard, staring at the house, hackles raised. When we tried to pull him in gently,
He dug his paws into the dirt and whined like he was in pain. At exactly 2:42 a.m., the house made a sound. Not a creak, not settling, a footstep from the guest bedroom. Oliver bolted for the door, slamming into it hard enough to rattle the frame. He barked once, a sharp, panicked sound I'd never heard from him before. Then silence. The smell returned, stronger than ever. The next day, we called a contractor. When he examined the basement corner, he frowned. "This isn't just patchwork," he said. "There's something under here." We didn't argue. When they broke through the concrete, Oliver howled from upstairs, not barking, howling, long and broken, like grief. They found a small space beneath the foundation, and inside it, evidence of something hidden for decades. I won't describe it. We moved out within a month. On the final day, as the movers carried boxes out, Oliver walked through the house one last time. He stopped at every doorway, every corner. Then he went to the front door and sat. When we stepped outside, he didn't follow. He turned back into the house. We never saw him again. The new owners said no dog was found inside, but sometimes when we drive past the neighborhood, my daughter asks why a dog still sits in the upstairs window of a house no one lives in. And I don't know how to tell her that some guardians don't leave when the danger is gone, because it's not gone. It's just contained.